When it comes to parcel shipping, it's no longer just about the destination. The journey has become just as important, and there's more hurdles than ever before in getting to that destination and in that journey, from technical to logistical. And all of those hurdles are creating a lot of blind spots for shippers and transportation leaders. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today on this episode of Better Yet, Fireside Chats with Innovators, Visionaries, and Leaders in Last Mile Parcel Shipping. I'm Dan Ptak. I'm filling in for Denise in this episode. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Jorie and Josh to this episode. Jorie Ramsaur, Vice President of Strategic Accounts over at Intelligent Audit, and Josh Fredman, Senior Vice President of Growth and Operations over at Better Trucks. Before we dive in, I'd love you both to give a little bit of your background and an overview of your organizations, and then we'll dive in. Jorie, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, thank you. I'm Jorie Ramsaur. I'm Vice President of Strategic Accounts with Intelligent Audit. I've been with Intelligent Audit for 9 years now. Prior to that, I did about 15 years on the carrier side in a variety of different roles. So excited to be here with you today. Intelligent Audit is a global technology company that provides audit and advanced analytics for all modes of transportation, everything from same-day courier, small parcel, LTL, truckload, air freight, ocean freight. Essentially, if it moves, we're able to audit it and provide that advanced analytics. We were founded back in 1996. We are a certified women-owned business, so we're very proud to be a Tier 1 diversity supplier. And really for us, our mission is to empower our customers to unlock the power of their data and become smarter shippers through actionable intelligence.
Jorie, great to do this with you, and Dan, thanks for moderating here today. Hi everybody, I'm Josh Fredman. Really excited to be here. As I mentioned, I lead the commercial group here at Better Trucks. We do last mile parcel delivery in about 20-25 metros in 16 states. We're growing quite a bit. We have a completely connected network, and we work with many of our customers, many of our shipping customers, to problem solve and figure out what's most important to them as we grow our organization. And we know that there's a choice in different providers that they have, and we think that at Better Trucks we can be a little bit more nimble, customer friendly, and really work to attack those issues and come up with interesting and dynamic solutions. So that's a little about Better Trucks, a little bit about my background. I joined Better Trucks about 3 years ago after a long stint in the commercial aviation industry, dealing with network planning, alliances, and customer experience. So taking those airline traits and moving them to package delivery and parcel.
Fabulous. Thank you both. All right, so the theme of today is blind spots. There's a little bit of a paradox of choice, I would say, in logistics and in parcel, right? There's more carrier options than ever before. There's more logistical options. So that's a good thing, but it also creates challenges for transportation leaders. There might be a carrier option that exists that can save costs or not change costs, and might adjust shipping times or times in transit. So Jorie, we're going to start with you. What are some of the biggest blind spots that you're seeing here today for transportation leaders? And maybe how are some of those folks trying to overcome those blind spots?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, I would say for most shippers, the biggest blind spot is they don't have access to a centralized repository with all their transportation data in real time. They have no ability to understand what normal looks like for them on a regular basis. You have to know your data in order to effectively know how you're going to improve or change. We'll talk to shippers who will say, I have a particular KPI that I need to improve by 5%, but do you even know where you currently stand? How can you track it and be able to identify what's directly impacting that particular KPI? So that's a big blind spot. And really, that's one of the benefits of the Intelligent Audit software, is that it has all of that data in one place. It allows a customer to be able to have that customized dashboard based on what critical data points are important to them. The other area that I would say, as far as blind spots, is just with all of the different activity and happenings of parcel shipments, or really any shipment, so many things can occur along the way, and so many additional fees or changes can happen. And so one of the things that Intelligent Audit has built into our software is proprietary machine learning, which detects changes in our customers' data so that we can address those blind spots when they do happen. So what does that even mean? Our machine learning algorithms are a mix of deep learning frameworks that essentially are, understanding kind of what's happening within the supply chain. A great way to think about it is the fraud alert notifications that you get from your credit card. It's essentially saying, hey, we're seeing activity that's different from what you normally do, so let's investigate that further. That then allows our team to capture information and be able to work with the customer to understand, okay, what exactly happened? What can the customer do to mitigate any further exposure? Honestly, we've seen so many different scenarios that are flagged through this. We've seen everything from last week, we had a customer that the system flagged a number of shipments, and it ended up being that the supplier had used the wrong account number. It wasn't even our customer's shipments. But the system had identified that based off of some reference information and other detail that it saw that said, hey, this is different than what we normally see from this customer. So being able to use that technology to help eliminate those blind spots, because in a lot of cases, those little things that are occurring, we're using technology to identify them very quickly and be able to address them quickly. Whereas, in the past, it would occur for weeks, months until somebody kind of knows, hey, what's happening here? What something looks weird. So we're really kind of using that technology to help eliminate those blind spots as quickly as possible.
It's really interesting, Jorie. I think that, the auditing space has a lot of blind spots, and I fully agree with you. I also think the tracking space has a lot of blind spots. And so if you take an example of a shipment that's coming in from abroad, it may go through several different modes of transportation, as you mentioned. It may go through different carriers. It may go through different customs or brokerage points as well. And I think that that's another blind spot. And so, I think that, from a shipping standpoint or a shipper standpoint, having visibility into all of those activities is also really important. And, we try to work with our clients to set up integrations that will enable all points of that package journey to be tracked and to be reported out to the end client and also to the customer, so that they know where their parcel is and have a better idea of when it's going to arrive at their doorstep.
What I'm hearing is we as transportation leaders have to put ourselves in a place to allow technology to help us kind of eliminate some of those blind spots. You mentioned, the central repository of data, and we're adding more variables, more complexity. We're going to talk a lot about the multi-carrier movement, which, is where we continue to move as an industry. But when we do implement that, you throw more variables into the mix. So how do we really make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success is what I'm hearing is kind of the theme here.
Absolutely. I think it's important that, especially if you have a multi-carrier strategy, you've got to be able to have all of that information together in one place and be able to have that normalized so that you're able to compare apples to apples and really be able to look at, what's working well for you as a shipper. There's a lot of different opportunities and different providers out there, but you've got to really understand what is that right fit for you and for your customers, really to be able to look at that customer experience.
I'm sure you're both seeing still a lot of manual scorecards, right? That take a lot of time and effort to produce, that aren't systematic, that aren't repeatable across. And, is that just slowing a lot of people down?
We see a lot of, Excel work that is taking time to kind of, work through and try to, understand as much as possible. But the problem is if you're looking at data that's weeks, months old, you're making decisions on situations that may not be the case anymore. So being able to have that real-time data and understand what's happening right now, what is the situation with different shipments, what is the status? To Josh's point, what is that visibility look like? and being able to address it very quickly rather than kind of making decisions on something that happened 3 months ago.
Jorie, when you talk about being able to make real-time decisions, what does that mean to a client of yours? Is it, instantaneous notification? Is it end of day reporting? Is it like, how quickly can a client jump on something that, they might be seeing or that might be reported to them?
We have a lot of clients that are managing the day-to-day exceptions as their packages are moving through the carrier system, so that if there is a package that's potentially looking to not make the delivery that they are anticipating, they can address that. Not all customers or not all shippers have the ability to manage that on a day-to-day basis. They may not have that team in place, but if that's something that's important to them based off of their product, their customers, then that visibility and that ability to manage that, understand, okay, what packages do we need to address right now? How do we need to address that? That all of that information is available.
So let's stay on this thread a little bit, because we alluded it at the top of the episode that it's no longer just about the destination. It used to be if you could just make a promise on when that package would be there and you could hit that promise, you were good. Now, even if you achieve that, things, Josh, you alluded to it, if notifications aren't there almost every step of the way, or you don't give a recipient the opportunity to maybe change an address, right in the middle of the process, you might still, catch the eye or catch the ear of that consumer. So talk a little bit about, maybe Josh, start with you, like consumer expectations. And when your current customers or you bring on a new customer, what expectation they're bringing to you from an analytics standpoint, from a notification standpoint, on the journey of the parcel?
Yeah, so from our standpoint, I think one of the most important things that we hear about from our clients is the ability to self-service and to be able to make changes on the fly if needed. And so whether that's through their API, whether that's accessing a customer portal that will enable them to make those changes, having not only that transparency and that real-time information, but also the ability to make those changes. Sometimes they're very small. It could be an apartment change, addition or deletion. It could be, sending a package to, someone's, other residents, in a different state. It's those types of requests that come in and the ease at which you can make those changes that really creates a lot of differentiation amongst carriers. And so that's really what we focus on. And I think that, to your point, Dan, customers have more transparency today than they've ever had before. Sometimes you can, pull up your phone, you can see exactly where the driver is. And sometimes, they may need the ability to make a change on the fly when the driver is, approaching their house to deliver a package. And so how you do that, how you communicate that, I think is really important. How that is tracked, not only by the client, but, in some cases, folks like Jorie and her team, I think could be a very big differentiator for the industry.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Jorie, what are you seeing from an experience perspective? I think that's a word that gets thrown around a lot. You have the shipper's experience, maybe with their carriers and their interaction with the customer. And then you have the customer experience, whether, it's a notification or a heads up or some of those features that you come to expect. Josh, we talk about having that photo evidence of the delivery, proof of delivery has become so important to a lot of people.
Yeah, that end customer experience is really critical because it does impact their impression of your product, right? What does that end customer experience look like? And I think to Josh's point, being able to, for the customer to be able to self-service and make decisions based off of what their needs are at that moment is really important. The other area that we see for a lot of shippers is really being able to understand what are the factors that are impacting that experience. Being able to track different KPIs from point of order to the point of delivery helps the shipper to understand what issues are impacting that end customer experience. If the package is delayed to the customer, it could have been affected by the carrier, but the reality is that the warehouse may have been delayed in getting the shipment to the carrier in the first place. So what we see is many shippers are tracking that customer promise date from point of order to really understand what's happening all along that journey, not just from the point at which the package is moving with the carrier, but from the point at which the customer enters in that information. And so being able to have that information and really understand, what does, normal look like for our customer? How do we address exceptions and situations that come up? Being able to, provide notification, give the end customer visibility to, hey, we've had a delay. Here's what we're doing to address that. The more that you can be proactive and be able to provide visibility to the customer, that certainly helps. But also really looking, internally to understand, first of all, where are we shipping out of? Are we even sending the product from the right DC, or are we potentially crisscrossing the country when we shouldn't be doing that? So really looking at all of that data, understand how can we as a shipper make any sort of changes or improvements to help address that overall end customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned which DC are we leveraging. That it almost feels like one of those blind spots that we're talking about. Like, how prevalent do you think that is, that there's like low-hanging fruit out there for a lot of shippers, that if they just have that visibility that we're kind of advocating for, like they can make some significant step changes in the delivery of their performances or in the way they work with carriers like yourself, Josh?
And cost savings.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely affects costs, right? It always will. And I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit like that by, really being able to look at your data and understand what are those different situations that are occurring, how often are they happening? There could always be a potential of you have a low SKU that is only going to be held in one DC, and that's fine. But if we're looking at it from, a pretty consistent process where, hey, we've got a good bit of volume that is moving out of the wrong DC, that's cost. And that affects all of those different aspects of the end customer experience. Time in transit's longer, you're having a higher cost with the carrier, all of those things. So it does certainly affect cost.
Jorie, that's really interesting. I just want to add one thing. I think from our standpoint, one of the biggest delays that we see, or reasons for delay, I guess, is because of a flawed address or the need for better address verification. And so, we try to work with our clients upline to make sure that we're getting the right information. It's a challenge, and we try to use different technology systems to help with that. I'm just curious for your any thoughts you have there specifically on address verification and work that you can do with your clients to prevent those types of issues upline.
Yeah, we often see the same issue, right? You have an address that is continuously having to be changed by the carrier. And so, one aspect of our system that we really try to encourage our customers to look at is, what are those recurring address corrections? When we look at certain addresses, we may see that, within the last month, we had 15 changes for the same address. So by being able to have that information and updating their internal systems, we can at least get those addressed and changed, so that it's not happening over and over. A lot of customers are using address validation software to try to mitigate those issues because they're going to come up. I see a lot of shippers that still are sending out PO addresses when, carriers aren't able to deliver to that. So little things like that can make a big difference. And Josh, to your point, it affects the end customer experience. It potentially delays getting the package to the right address. And as a carrier, you've got to then look at, do we even have that on the right route, right? Or is that potentially going to have to shift things around? So being able to be proactive and address that early in the process makes a big difference.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about challenges and barriers to becoming truly kind of tech-centric. And Jorie, you laid out what best in class looks like. And even just starting with that central repository, it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, we just need to move in that direction. But we know a lot of technology comes with people changes, with process changes. There are significant costs to a lot of this technology. And let's be honest, there's only so many hours in the day. So, Josh, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the biggest barriers you see with clients adopting some of this technology that we know can make a big difference in their lives and in their consumers' lives? What's holding them back?
Yeah, Dan, I mean, I think it's a really good question. From our vantage point, one of the things we see is just the adaptation of technology, really based because of homegrown or archaic technology that they have and they're using, on site currently. Sometimes these systems are decades old, and it's very difficult to make a change to. And so, from our standpoint, that can be a real challenge. It can be a challenge not only from integration, it can be a challenge from invoicing, it can be a challenge from setting up the right place to pick up a package. And so that's really the biggest opportunity that we see. Jorie, I'd be curious for your thoughts there.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, you certainly see companies that have, older systems, and in a lot of cases, they just don't have the information that to even, be able to share. So being able to have that detail in systems that can be integrated with, that can push that out. There's a lot that can be done with that, and really adds a big benefit in order to improve processes, in order to streamline and have efficiencies. The other thing I would say too is that, in a lot of cases, when you have data coming in from a variety of sources, many times it's very messy. So being able to have normalized data that's clean, more consistent, that can also be really beneficial. But overall, in a lot of cases, it's being able to really understand, what are you looking to get out of the technology? What are you looking to improve? And how does that impact the different strategies and, at the end of the day, the end customer experience and cost that you're looking to impact?
I'm sure there could be a lot of frustration on both your ends. Josh, I know when you talk to a potential new customer, everything else could line up, right? As far as the coverage, as far as the cost savings, as far as the logistics of how they work with your network. And then there's the technical hurdles, or they might need resourcing on their side. And it's a win-win if we can just get it moving. Or Jorie, from your side, like, you're leveraging your software, you're making these recommendations on how to save money, and there's these hurdles. So I'm sure there's sometimes no easy answers, but from both your vantage points and from the shipper's standpoint, it's hard when some of this technology is complicated, and we have to keep evolving and maturing as organizations, right?
Totally agree.
Yeah. One thing that I will say that, we, in a lot of cases, we'll get pushback that, our IT team is the customer, the IT team is busy, they're assigned other projects. And that is one thing that I appreciate about our system, is that we don't have to integrate with our customers' internal systems in order to provide the audit, in order to provide analytics. So that makes a big difference from, an implementation perspective. But, there's so much benefit that different teams within an organization can capture from, not just the logistics team, but the finance team, the operations, all of those different pieces. So it's really helpful, I think, if you look broader to understand, okay, this isn't just going to impact this one little piece of what I'm trying to do, but the reality is that it helps improve a variety of different roles and gives broader visibility to our company as a whole.
Absolutely. Let's switch gears just a little bit to the multi-carrier movement and the rise of regionals, as we call it. It's been building for some time now. This is nothing new, but a lot of transportation leaders and shippers continue to move in this direction, thanks to the availability of technology and aggregators. And Josh, the rise of shippers like Better Trucks. So Jorie, how are you continuing to advise your clients as they think about a multi-carrier strategy and all the different considerations that go into those types of decisions?
Yeah, we certainly see, a lot of our customers having a multi-carrier strategy. And I think really for us, the important part is to empower our customers to have informed data-backed decisions based off of analytics. That's really our mission, is to help make our customers smarter shippers by having advanced analytics and having all of that data at their fingertips. That being said, there's a lot of benefit that customers can capture by using regional carriers and by having a multi-carrier strategy. Some of that depends on their product and their, what their strategy and approach is. But time and time again, we've seen that by differentiating and by having that multi-carrier strategy and being able to really understand what are you looking to gain from different carriers, what are where are their strengths? How are we using that to really be a part of that end customer experience? There's a lot to be gained from that.
And Josh, what are you seeing as you continue to talk to clients as they try and kind of navigate or they add potential carriers? They're making a lot of decisions at the onset, and they're talking to you about what volume and what type of volume and how are they going to interact with the coverage and the network. And as you continually expand your network, those are ongoing conversations, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the areas that some of these larger shippers in particular are most eager to exploit is the ability to for us to be more dynamic and for us to be able to be more creative in our solutioning, kind of as I mentioned at the top. And so, if there's a change needed, if there's something that could be a value add, that's something that Better Trucks can implement very quickly. Sometimes next day it's we have tech teams at the disposal ready to go, whereas at some of the national carriers, some of the larger carriers, it's a project. It takes time. It has to get funding. It has to be prioritized internally, and so I think that's one of the big differences. But I also see that the big carriers and the national carriers have been doing things the same way for decades. It's very tough for them to change. It's very tough for them to be more agile, and that's where I see opportunity for Better Trucks and other players in the market as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I want to hit on one more topic and we'll get you both out of here, but it's a pretty big elephant in the room. As of this taping on Monday, negotiations kicked off between UPS and the Teamsters. UPS has signaled they want to have a decision, hopefully before the end of July when the contract runs out, but this thing could run well into the summer. It's anyone's guess what's going to happen, and everyone needs to be developing, and everyone is developing those contingency plans there. So, Jorie, you have a pretty unique perspective in the marketplace, given the carriers you work with, the data, that you're privy to and that is available to you. How are you thinking about and how are you advising clients to think about any potential disruptions this year with some of the larger carriers?
Yeah, I think in this situation and in a variety of other scenarios that we've seen, it's always prudent to have that contingency plan in place. We've seen issues come up in the past, whether that's during peak season or other times, that where suddenly you need to be able to pivot. And this is another case where you really need to understand what are your contingency plans and what needs to happen in order for you to enact those and really be able to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. Because to your point, things could change very quickly. And so you really need to understand what's happening and how do we plan to react and have those contingency plans in place. A lot of shippers have a multi-carrier strategy in place. And so that does give flexibility, certainly. But I think, if a shipper doesn't have that multi-carrier strategy, then, the critical piece is to really understand what are those contingency plans and how is that potentially going to affect your end customer experience, and be able to, again, as we talked about earlier, be able to communicate and be ready for those different situations that could come up.
Absolutely. Josh, I'm sure you've gotten, the proactive phone calls where people are thinking about this, months ahead of time. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you've gotten some of those 11th hour phone calls, whether it be a carrier disruption or peak. I guess just give us your vantage point as we sit here in kind of April and think about and plan for the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, you're exactly right. We've gotten 11-hour calls. We've gotten lots of customers that we have not heard from previously that have reached out because of their needs to build business continuity. And really what it comes down to from our side is building much more flexity into our workflow to be able to accommodate additional volume should there be a strike. Some of the damage may already be done, whereby shippers are already making changes, and for us that's been positive. I think that one of the things that we focused on is how can we build out our need for additional assets. Should they be drivers? Should they be buildings? Should they be equipment? And in those, that's very similar to what we do for each peak season planning. So instead of planning for November, December, January time, we're planning for the summer, and that's just taking a page out of our existing playbook and working to make sure that we know what could be coming down line, and whether that's from a volume standpoint, whether that's from a geographical standpoint. Those are all discussions that we're having with our clients.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We covered a ton of ground today. I'll get you out of here on this. It's called Better Yet for a reason. We believe deeply there's never been a better time to be in this space, in the shipping space, in the parcel space. Jorie, we'll start with you. When you think of kind of the year ahead, what excites you most?
What continues to excite me is that, the parcel industry is continuously changing and evolving. We have different situations come up, like, what we've talked about with the pending negotiations, contracts. And then you also have the excitement of the ongoing improvement in technology. What is out there that can help provide our customers that right experience in that delivery. So I think the use of technology and how carriers are using that to support that flexibility, like Josh talked about earlier, with being able to allow the end customer to self-service and be able to really make changes as they need. That's really exciting, and exciting to see where we continue to evolve that. And then, again, as I talked about before, being able then to have all of that information together in one place and understand, okay, what is that right fit for us? How do we want to use this data to make strategic decisions for our company, for our end customer, and how we are really impacting that overall experience?
Jorie, I think those are great points. I'm going to pick on something a little bit different, which is, how can technology and therefore decision making come into play to help save costs for shipping clients? And one of the things that I look at, in discussions that we've had and looking at kind of what the runway looks like going forward, is the ability to help customers with their needs that may not fall directly into the parcel category, but may fall a little bit further upline in the supply chain, and therefore helping them save costs by not having to manage multiple relationships or as many relationships. And so, I think there's a lot more interest now more so than ever at reducing costs across the whole supply chain realm of a company. And so how can, better trucks and companies do more work for the client, maybe at a cheaper rate, and create mutual synergies and mutually beneficial opportunities. And so, I'm excited about, helping utilize our assets in areas that we haven't previously, because they've been needed either purely for parcel purposes, or because the clients haven't needed or haven't been open to those discussions about helping them, in other parts of their supply chain and product movement. So really excited about that going forward.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much. Appreciate it, Jorie, Josh, for your time, your expertise, and your perspectives. This has been this episode of Better Yet, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you. We appreciate it.